This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended to cause or induce breach of an existing agency agreement.
Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Wright.
Got Nathan Armour here.
And I have a guest host. We got Nathan Armour from our new Westminster office sitting in because Matt and Adam are MIA. I don't know where they are. They don't return my calls. They don't return my texts. I mean, these guys are doing multiple offers. I'm hand over fist and I'm just getting thrown to the wolves at this point.
Unless your text is subject free, they're not responding back to you.
Yeah, that's how it works today. Nate, on today's show, we have the one and only Jon Friesen, CEO of the Mission Group in Kelowna. So anyone who's been to Kelowna lately or over the past 10 years, you'll notice a huge transformation in that marketplace. And you'll see towers now that are coming up in the downtown core. The Mission Group is one of the large premier developers up there behind it. We're very fortunate to have them on. When was the last time you ended up in Kelowna, Nate?
Fact to fame for Nathan, I've never been to Kelowna.
Well, it's on your to-do list this year. If you, for those who haven't been there, it's changed dramatically. How are you finding things right now in the commercial real estate market? How busy is it? I never even talk to you anymore. You don't even return my calls.
Well, no. It's to a point that I think we're going to see it slowly come to maybe a normal state because right now it's just crazy.
Define normal state.
Maybe instead of 10 multiple offers, we're down to 3.
Yeah. Do you feel interest rates will have that much of a dramatic impact? I know the people on the surface kind of think it's going to have a lot of impact potentially as rates rise. Are you seeing that or feeling that, or are you dealing with clients that are having concerns about that yet?
I think people's concerns right now is inflation. And if their money is not put into an asset, then they're losing money.
Yeah, right now money arguably is probably devaluing itself sitting on the outside looking in. Before we get to our interview with Jon Friesen, a quick word from our sponsor. This week's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Impact Commercial Group.
Really enjoy working with Impact Commercial. And we should say Al and his team can basically do anything when it comes to lending.
Anything when it comes to under the commercial umbrella. You're building a building in development, we got you covered. You're buying land, we'll make that happen for you. You're investing in a property or multifamily building, check. Owner-occupiers looking to acquire their own space, double check. Anything commercial financing you need, Impact Commercial is your go-to.
ImpactCommercial.ca. And we should say over 50 years of combined experience. So trust these guys. They're the right fit.
Best in the business, in my opinion. So we're here today with Jon Friesen, CEO of the Mission Group. Jon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So anyone who's familiar with Kelowna and can see all the exciting developments and towers coming in, the Mission Group needs no introduction. But Jon, can you maybe tell us a little bit of where you started and how you sort of rose up to become the CEO of one of Kelowna's premier developers?
Sure. The premier developer part, I'm a little bit hesitant as always to receive that sort of a designation. We still see ourselves as an organization that's learning a lot and kind of moving through the ranks. But as far as Mission Group and how I got here, well, quite frankly, when I moved back to Kelowna from Grand Cayman, after having been gone for 7 years or so, we were doing charity work over there. I needed something to do, so I decided to re-engage with the property development market or property development industry. Started with a small little project called Mission Shores, which launched in 2003. And slowly we've been building competencies, building staff, putting together much stronger partnerships. And that is how we got to where we are today. The actual organization we now call Mission Group has less than a 20-year history. We've been formally known as the Mission Group or Mission Group since 2004.
Jon, I mean, one thing for people that have seen Kelowna kind of go from where it is, and obviously there's been a lot of hype around it. Recently, it came out that it was Canada's fastest growing city. COVID has obviously put a big spotlight on secondary and tertiary markets, maybe more so outside of Vancouver than what we saw 4 or 5 years ago. You guys got a tremendous project coming up called Aqua. If I remember correctly, it's a 3-tower project down there on the water. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that seems to be like raising the level and raising the benchmark of what Kelowna has to offer with what you guys are bringing to market.
Well, thank you. That's kind of you. So Aqua it's been one of those, call it a labors of love. We've owned that property since 2007 and augmented it with additional waterfront pieces to get the assembly we have right now. It is 3 condominium towers. We've already launched the first tower. It's completely sold out. And now we're doing the final release that'll be coming this summer. So if I could be so bold as to give a little plug for ourselves.
For sure.
If you go on the Mission Group website, you'll be able to find the registration page. And I'm quite proud of what our marketing group has done there. The type of marketing that you'll see is 1 or 2 flavors different from the typical. It's a premier product. If this product were available in Vancouver, say, and if that price per square foot were pushing $3,000 a foot, you'll be able to buy these homes for about half that amount. So that's still a steep price, I will admit, for Kelowna, but it is an absolutely premier piece of property. It is not downtown. It's in the Mission District, so no downtown issues, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a high amenity neighborhood. It's fully walkable. It's connected to the Greenway, which is a beautiful linear park. And there is absolutely direct lakefront access, and you will never, ever have another building built in front of your view on the final piece.
And when is the estimated delivery of the products? If those go on sale later this summer, is this a 2 or 3 year out delivery time?
Yeah, the delivery time is about 2.5 year build.
You mentioned downtown there, and you guys obviously have done some tremendous towers in the downtown area, and we have UBCO coming up, as well as you guys have your AAA office building. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and the office building downtown, and how has that gone so far? And obviously, is that tying in with that UBO project that you guys have?
Yeah, it does not directly tie in with the UBCO project. It's on a different site altogether, but right around the corner. They're all downtown Kelowna. And downtown Kelowna, as you may know, is a pretty tiny little strip of property there overall. So the block, which is what we call our office tower, is next to Bertram, which is the condo tower. The condominium tower is sold out completely. The block, we're just coming out of the ground with it right now. It's under construction. The block is around 110 square feet. In addition to that, there are commercial retail units. We have about 16,000 feet of that. And it is the only Class A office building in downtown Kelowna. In fact, it's the only one in Kelowna. And it's just an extremely amenity-rich, great place to work, but also happens to be an amazing place to live as well. Living downtown has a flavor all its own. If you've been down there recently, you'll know it's not the same old downtown that I knew when I first moved here. It's a place where you really want to go with your parents, your grandkids, your children, someone you love. You can walk up and down that street and enjoy the waterfront and all the cool little shops and restaurants and eateries that are out there. And it's been part of a bit of a revival for the city of Kelowna. And our office building and in the whole complex that we're calling Bernard Block is going to be a good bookend to what is already happening on the waterfront side of Bernard Street. So we're really looking forward to that. We're actually moving our corporate offices there, and I personally cannot wait.
And when is the block anticipated to complete?
The block is anticipated to complete about 18 months from now.
So with Kelowna, and obviously you guys have been very focused and done an extremely great job in what you guys are doing in Kelowna. Is there other markets besides Kelowna that the Mission Group is currently looking in, whether it be BC Interior or even the Lower Mainland?
Yeah, well, our strategic plan focuses on Okanagan, and we kind of draw ourselves a tiny little triangle within that zone. North as far as Vernon, south as far as Penticton, Kelowna is kind of in the middle, east as far as Kamloops, and then, of course, the Lower Mainland. So we have done the odd project here and there in your area. Right now, we have got nothing on the go, but we are really looking. There's some very interesting prospects there, but maybe not in residential, probably more in industrial, light industrial, and that kind of a play.
Recently, you guys had acquired a fairly substantial piece of land there just on the outskirts of the downtown core that the Western investor was publicizing there. I think it was around $20 million. It seems to be a little outside of where the OCP currently sits. What is the Mission Group's vision for that site or even that area? Or what can you tell us, maybe without giving away too much, dialogue with the city and how, the Mission Group and the city of Kelowna sort of envision that part of town?
Yes, so that is an approximately 4-acre site that used to be part of a BC Tree Fruits cold storage yard. It was a much older industrial yard that's probably been there since the 50s. And it is actually encircled by the old Tolko mill site. So if you're familiar with Kelowna, you'll notice that there's I think it's a 44-acre waterfront site that was all part of the Tolko sawmill. And they've owned it for many, many years. And that mill has now been decommissioned and almost completely disassembled. We're all in the process of creating a neighborhood plan. So all the community consultation process is ongoing. The city is, I think, doing an amazing job of bringing in, all the desires and concerns of local residents and the needs of Kelowna going forward. So if you could imagine this big, huge site that is completely surrounded by water, and what you could do with something that large and that comprehensive. So I'm sure there'll be, beautiful open spaces. There'll be the availability of access to boating and the lake. It'd be the kind of place you'd go with your children or grandkids. And I always talk about grandkids because I'm a grandfather now. But, I can picture myself walking out there with my 4-year-old granddaughter, holding her hand, walking along the water, grabbing an ice cream or something cold to drink and spending the day out there. I'm sure there'll be lots of food entertainment, but of course, all kinds of other mixed-use commercial, retail, residential uses. And the city, I believe, is working with the Tolko people as well as ourselves, or they are working with them. I don't believe they are. And we're together going to create something spectacular that I think it'll just be a showstopper. It'll be one of those communities that, we have the opportunity to do something so amazing that everyone in North America could be pointing at it and saying that's how you plan something. So, there's nothing specific now. I think there'll be a lot of residential there, but certainly a lot of commercial uses as well. The Kelowna Rail Trail, which is an old railway bed that's now turned into a really vibrant bicycle. It's basically a bicycle thoroughfare that goes from this site is right behind the BC Tree Fruit site that we purchased. And it goes all the way to Vernon. And it's virtually flat. It goes through 2 lakes on the way, Wood Lake and Cal Lake, before you end up at the beach in Coldstream in Vernon. And it's just an amazing connection in so many ways to cycling, the outdoor life, boating, living, working. That is absolutely one of the most incredible potentials I've ever seen in my career.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
John, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Kelowna has seen a huge boom over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Where do you foresee Kelowna being in the next 3 years or going from here?
Well, Kelowna is become the focal point in so many ways. As you know, we cannot supply enough homes right now for the people that are moving here. So in a sense, that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to imagine that trend that, we often talk about something breaking over center, right? So this is, think of it as a levered buckle or something that you push and push and push, and suddenly it snaps over center. And now it's pulling you down the hill.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Kelowna is at right now. I think that it's received very wide acclaim amongst the people who want to live here and be part of the lifestyle that it offers. It's full of jobs for anybody that wants one. Our unemployment rate is lower than it was before the pandemic. We're also seeing from a commercial level, I know this is, I think, a real estate podcast that's focusing on commercial real estate. But at the commercial level, we're seeing something completely new. And that is that outsiders, organizations from the outside of Kelowna are now taking Kelowna seriously. And what I mean by that is, when we talk to the big institutional investors or pension funds or private equities 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they would say, maybe one day, but we just got, they'd say it much nicer than this, but we've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Today, we as a Mission Group are actually partnering with 2 significant institutional investors, private equities from the outside. And so one being KB Capital out of Alberta and one being Nicola Wealth out of Vancouver. And so suddenly they're saying, okay, this is a place we can take seriously. There's a level of professionalism here, and all the components necessary to make a great little city are now all here, like a great hospital, lots of places to work, a booming tech industry, a great international airport, a university that is not only out by the airport in this major university campus, but they're also moving downtown, much like they should have done in Vancouver many years ago. But now they're playing a bit of catch up. I mean, I'm talking a bit of about UBC here, but UBC has seen the potential of downtown Kelowna, not just Kelowna in general. So when they move in, they start acquiring properties, partnering with people like us. We're extremely gratified, and it's when there's so much attention from institutional investors and educational institutions, the highly educated professionals that want to raise their families here, work here, and live here. It's hard to imagine that that trend will end anytime soon. If anybody asks me about where prices are going to go, well, your crystal ball is as good as mine with the kind of geopolitical uncertainty that we see. But so far, we have seen no change in markets in the last several weeks. The type of demand is still exactly the same. And if you want to talk about areas of the residential market that are hot, we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
But as far as the longevity of Kelowna as a place to live and invest and work, it's hard to imagine how that's going to end anytime soon.
Now, you mentioned there about other areas of Kelowna. Obviously, you guys have been developing a lot in the downtown areas of late, now the Lower Mission. Is there other areas within the Kelowna marketplace or even West Kelowna that the Mission Group is developing or will be developing in the near future?
Yeah, we are actively looking at land. In fact, the meeting right before I took your call was our weekly acquisitions meeting, a land acquisitions meeting, which has turned out to be the most fun meeting and the most well-attended meeting in our office. Our entire boardroom was full and we had standing room only. But yes, we are looking in Lake Country. We also have interest in Vernon. We are actually under construction of a purpose-built rental building in Penticton.
Wow.
And there's the Lower Mission. We've got one active project there right now, and another one in the pipeline, which will be a lower density townhome and condominium project. We've also in the Lower Mission just closed last week on an acquisition on Abbott Street, which will be a cool little boutique condo, and it's a highly gentrified area right across the street from a waterfront park that the city is currently has under construction.
Wow.
So yeah, we're interested in all kinds of areas in Kelowna, not just downtown. But we have to shift the product type based on the peculiarities of the local neighborhood.
Now, you guys are obviously, we all look at you as like one of the premier developers up there with the amazing projects that you guys have going on. Is there any other cities around the world or any projects around the world that you guys draw inspiration from to kind of be at the forefront of development in Kelowna?
Yeah, we're constantly looking at what other cities are doing. This morning we had another kind of a meeting where we're looking at inspiration for of how to incorporate water into properties. And of course, the entitlement is a whole nother question, and we have to be able to convince the authorities that this is a good thing for the environment and for people and for living and for the city. But we were actually looking at, I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but believe it or not, cities like Venice or Amsterdam. And there are also very interesting examples in the Middle East where canals and rivers and waterways are brought directly into mixed-use residential complexes with great success.
Oh, wow.
So those are some of the inspirations that are going on. I believe that the previous time we spoke, we actually referred to Monte Carlo as being another waterfront neighborhood, if you want to call it, the waterfront principality in that case,
yep,
where they have incorporated their yacht harbor directly into the most important part of Monaco. And so we're always looking, and when members of our team go to other parts of the world, Asia or Europe, we say, well, what is good about this place? How did it get to be that way? Even when you look at something like a piazza in Italy,
yep,
there's a certain dimension and scale to these kinds of experiences. If it were too big, maybe you wouldn't recognize somebody on the other side, and if it were too small, it'd be too cloistered and feel boxed in, right? So I think various members of our team who travel are always coming back with these kinds of very interesting observations that we can incorporate into what we do locally here as well.
Totally. I have another question for you there, Jon.
Mm-hmm.
For the projects that you guys are currently selling, where are you seeing a lot of your buyers coming from?
I'm sure this answer won't be surprising to you. Vancouver. Yeah.
Well, you're half price. That's why.
Yeah, it's half price. Honestly, it's we laugh about it, but to someone from Vancouver, Kelowna real estate, although those of us who live here think it's kind of getting pricey, is not pricey at all. So if you happen to be moving here from Vancouver, you'll think it's a bargain. If you happen to be moving here from, Nova Scotia, you'll probably think it's too expensive. But our customers are predominantly Vancouverites. And by predominantly, I mean, kind of north of 70% of our buyers in our most recent high-rise launches have had Vancouver postal codes.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
if a little birdie told me that you might have a developing history down here before you ended up at the Mission Group, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate and developing, and maybe so much, down here in Vancouver and the projects you did?
Sure. How I got into development. So I stumbled into it, right? I'm not going to pretend like I was brilliant and it was strategic. I was working for a large Japanese trading company as a chemical trader straight out of university. I graduated from college in LA, Los Angeles, moved to Vancouver, got a job there, and then quickly realized that, I'm probably more of the entrepreneur type.
Yeah.
So I started out as an import-export trade consultant because that was most closely related to my previous work experience as a chemical trader, and stumbled on a client who was a local builder developer in Vancouver, and kind of saw some insight into how the business was done, and eventually formed a partnership with somebody in Vancouver who was far more experienced than I, and we formed an organization together. I brought in investors from Japan, and we started like that back in the 80s. And we did some work overseas as well in the South Pacific and in Japan. But the project that we completed in Vancouver that still is there is next to the Burrard Bridge. It's called 1000 Beach. So there's a 26-story high-rise tower there with some flanking buildings and a marina. And that inspiration also came from Monte Carlo, believe it or not, because of the way the marina carves into the property.
Yeah.
And so that is the project that I did first back when I was in my 20s, some 4 decades ago.
John, I know your crystal ball is probably as good as ours, and you touched on it. But where does the Mission Group, and where do you foresee Kelowna going over the next 5 or 10 years? Is that same expansion of the city, the downtown core? Can that maintain the pace that it's on right now? Obviously, right now Kelowna's got a lot of attention on it. Do you foresee that expansion of the downtown core, and obviously the expansion of the high rises in Kelowna keeping pace?
Oh, absolutely. There's so much runway ahead for Kelowna to grow up into a proper city. Right now, it's a city, but it really feels a lot like a small town. And I look forward to seeing the day when downtown Kelowna is, even more vibrant and amenity rich than it is right now. There's so much opportunity here. Even if we ignore the 44 acres that is part of the Tolko site and the 4 acres that we have out there, which in and of itself could be a very, very significant contributor to the overall amenity level of downtown. The Bernard Avenue corridor itself is still extremely underbuilt. So there's just a huge amount of runway there. And going forward, we really want to be part of making Kelowna a great city. And part of our ethos is not just about, making sure that our projects and our customers are successful. It's really about all of Kelowna and making sure that everyone who we cross paths with, whether they're our customers or tenants or not, can benefit by how we build and how we contribute through the built form. And as you know, it's just so incredibly important how developers approach their job. In that years after people have forgotten who built it or who planned it or who thought of it, people will continue to experience life to a great extent based on how great the city is that they live in and what kind of experiences they can build there. And if we do a good job, then I think that Kelowna will be a significantly better place to live. And we're fortunate to have a great city staff to work with and council. But the developers have a deep responsibility that they need to take seriously, well beyond what kind of profits they can derive from it, because the city continues to grow and benefit or not based on whether we do a good job or not. So yeah, our future here, I believe, is bright, but that's because Kelowna's future is bright. And if we contribute to that future by making it brighter, well, who wouldn't want a better place to build more? And that's kind of how we see it.
No, I know we've been fortunate up there as well with our office opening just over I guess a year and a half ago, and we've been able to sort of put together a tremendous team, and they've had tremendous success in a very short period of time. And Kelowna is like, for those people who haven't been to Kelowna, it's changed rapidly, and it's almost like a playground. It's so beautiful up there. Jon, before we let you go here, we got a 6-pack of lighthearted questions we ask all of our guests, so we get to kind of know you a little bit outside of the workplace. Do you have just a couple more minutes for us?
Sure.
Great. So the 6-pack is brought to you by our good friends over at Red Point Law. For all your commercial legal needs, visit them at redpointlaw.ca. Jon, we'll throw you a softball to start off here. Favorite vacation spot when you find the time?
Mallorca, Spain.
Wow.
Any particular reason?
Yeah, the cycling there is amazing. The whole place, it looks like a great big, cycling haven for people that just love pedaling and experiencing the countryside.
That's incredible. How about favorite restaurant, let's say in Kelowna?
Favorite restaurant in Kelowna is still Home Block out by Cedar Creek and Martin's Lane. By the way, if you can find some way to finagle yourself into Martin's Lane as a tour, I think you should. It's an incredible piece of architecture, but their wine is exceptional. I've never had Pinot Noir like I've had there.
Well, that'll be a must stop next time I'm up there then. What song's currently on repeat on your iPod?
Currently on repeat on my iPod. I don't have music like that that's currently on repeat. But to be honest with you, I like geezer rock, as they would call it, like Eagles and and Chicago and Bread and Cat Stevens. And that's kind of my genre. But I also really enjoy, classic jazz, classical music, Mozart, J.S. Bach.
Oh, wow.
If you want to relax, listen to a J.S. Bach. If you're really on a rock, well, listen to Boston. But like the newer stuff doesn't do much for me.
So if you had your jazz on, what would be your favorite book you would like to read or recommend to somebody?
Favorite book? Well, I'm going to give a title to you, Dare to Lead by Brené Brown.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that I didn't resonate with all parts of the book, but I still think it's an excellent book to read. In particular, there's a section there that she did on, what did she call it? The courageous leadership versus armored leadership. And there's 16 or so points that she brings up having to do with, really, it's a very, very insightful way to take a look at management theory and the way that we armor ourselves or way that we become more transparent and vulnerable, which she would call courageous leadership. Wow. So, I've gone through that with my lead team, and I think it resonated really well. And there's just places to learn. And, maybe I've got defensive strategies in my leadership style that I incorporate that really shouldn't be there. And that would be like part of the armored side. Or you can be open and transparent and build a lot of trust in the organization. And once you have that, you can build community within the organization. Culture improves and helps you knock your strategy out of the park.
Keeps it retained. So that was Dare to Lead, right?
Dare to Lead by Brené Brown.
Okay, we got another one for you. What is your favorite TV show?
Oh, man. Favorite TV show? Do I really admit this?
Come on.
Narcos.
You can't go wrong. Plato or Pomo, right?
Yeah.
Jon, one final question here before we let you go. Maybe a piece of advice for our listeners who are looking to get into commercial real estate some way, somehow, someone with your experience. What's some advice you could give the first timers?
Commercial real estate. I was going to advise somebody freshly getting into commercial real estate. I would say concentrate on the location first, not the price.
Very well put. Very well put. Jon, how can our guests find out more about all the exciting stuff that the Mission Group has going on both in Kelowna and the other markets that you're in?
If you go to missiongroup.ca, you'll find everything that you need right there.
Excellent. Well, Jon, thank you so much for your time once again. I mean, we wish you nothing but the best of luck with your big upcoming launch of the Aqua Towers up here coming in springtime. And I'm sure you'll have great success there as you always do.
Thank you very much. Very
excellent.
Kind of you.
Thanks so much for your time, Jon. We really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. There you have it, folks. Our interview with Jon Friesen, CEO of the Mission Group. And for those who haven't been to Kelowna as of late, definitely put it on your list for this summer. The downtown core there is just changing dramatically. You're having these beautiful high-rise towers that are coming into the market, and the Mission Group is on the forefront of this massive development in what was recently named Canada's fastest growing city.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to put mine down south for the Aqua Tower.
Yeah.
He says it's going to be going live. When do they launch?
I think he said the springtime. So for those who aren't aware of it, I believe it's a 3-tower project in the Lower Mission that's right on the waterfront. And I believe I read somewhere that they're going to have a boat valet in the building.
I'll get my yacht by then, right?
Yeah, I don't know if your yacht's going to fit in there, Nate. So you still might have to park that on the outskirts.
It's fine.
But like I said, it's a tremendous project. I think it's going to be a game changer for the Kelowna market there. Although you have so many beautiful buildings that are currently either being marketed or set to start or currently under construction, the Aqua project looks to be second to none there in the Lower Mission, right on the water.
Totally. And now he's saying that the REITs are now taking it as a big fish to fry. You take that.
Well, I think if you look at it too, if you look at from an investor standpoint, whether you're a mom and pop investor or an institutional investor,
yeah,
it's harder and harder to make the returns on the money that people once did down here in the Lower Mainland. So markets like Victoria and Kelowna tend to hit the radar much quicker than what it was. And John mentions on the show there about how years ago it wasn't on their radar, and now there's money coming out of these large institutionals and capital companies into these markets like Kelowna. And I think if you look at the run-up Kelowna's had, it's a great market for investors. It still has a great runway ahead of it for investors, but definitely it's not a sleepy market like it once was. Now it's getting international attention, and now he talks about institutional type investors now coming to the table. It's just significant how much Kelowna has grown in a short period of time and how much more it can grow and probably will grow in the coming years.
He says stay tuned.
Nate, for all of our listeners here, how can they find out more about what you guys are doing in Westminster at William Wright Commercial there?
It's the best way. Just give me a call on my cell phone, 778-987-3055.
Great, Nate. Well, thank you so much once again for sitting in for Matt and Adam. If you see them or you hear from them or whatever it is, let them know that I am here looking for them. And guys, we have some more great guests coming up next week. Thanks so much for listening.
Take care.
Subscribe today.